All right, so excuse me. All right, so I was thinking of definitely showing this in class, but since we didn't have enough time today, just wanted to make sure I actually covered some of the Rhino questions. I know you guys have particular model stuff, and I was pretty excited definitely about TwinMotions. So I wanted to make something short, sweet, and of course helpful. So what I have is, of course, just one of my computer graphics projects, right? Of course, on our site, just for scale reference, right? And so, again, just some tips and tricks. Obviously, this is for something of just like simple modeling. Obviously, you can do this 15 different ways. But, what I have basically on the screen is, essentially, just a 20 by 30, right? So in my case, 20 feet, enter, 30 feet, enter, and just kind of space planning. For me, this would be like essentially establishing the grid, right? So if you can tell, basically all of these, of course, have 4 points. If I copy it over and over again, oop, I want to get that a little bit more perfect, of course. But just using this as a grid, of course, copying it a couple times. And something that's just, just downright useful, right? Obviously, maybe move this and kind of get a ballpark figure, right? So for instance, I know a lot of us even already have a plan, right? So for instance, draw that then, right? You know your dimensions, hopefully from your sketch, right? Ballpark it. Maybe it's actually of this dimension, right? So if I do DIM, hit the whole piece and immediately see that it's 1,200 inches. Yeah, that's not very helpful. So obviously pick a different unit. In my case, some people don't know how to do this, so I like pointing out kind of all these things. 100 feet, pretty sweet. How much area do we have? Area. And again, I like to point out simple tricks like 27,000 square feet. Awesome, right? And it's actually looking pretty good. Maybe I actually put these together. So let's say move that. And like say this was already my design, right? I know some of you guys just have like a box, right? In many cases it needs a grid. But keep in mind that a grid doesn't always just have to be like lines, right? In fact, there's a simpler way of doing it. You can start to think about, well, okay, maybe I have an irregular, right? Maybe I have some sort of irregular shape building. Maybe that's something like this. I don't know, just making it up, right? But now I do have a grid system still, and that's important, right? So I'll kind of save that off because, well, I can, and I always do stuff like that, just so I don't detract from myself. But again, I kind of wanted to show you some things because, well, I know some of us already have a grid. We already have dimensions in mind, and to be fair, I mean, some of this can be planned and done. I think, honestly, easier through sketching first and then moving to the computer, because that's how I did it. That's how I learned. I went to SAC too. Anyway, but stuff like bend, I mean, something so intuitive like this where you pick a start point and an end point, and essentially you can bend the entire piece by a certain radius. Like, there's no excuse to not have a grid, guys. Another way of doing this that's even more mathematically correct is like using a circle, right? And just going radial about it, right? So this one you actually do have to more or less go to lines, but essentially you want to establish those lines. Polar array, or sorry, I always say that backwards. In our case, center point, awesome. How many do I want? I don't know, let's say 16 feet apart. And yeah, it definitely took that as a measurement. Nice. I do want it 360, enter, and that's looking pretty cool, enter. Right, so I do have to know a couple things, right? Like in this case, my largest span I want to be about 16 feet. That's looking actually a little bit bigger than 16 feet, so I wonder how correct that calculation was. But in our case, offsetting, this one will be, of course, a linear direction, so 16 feet. Yeah, so I mean, that obviously tells us what 16 feet is right here. But I could do that actually over and over again and establish a grid system. So there's definitely no excuse to not be able to think of a grid system. I can even just print this out and trace it, right? For goodness sakes. But just kind of keep going. And the reason why I like to establish grids is because, well, eventually these do, of course, have to be structural systems. And I don't know, this might be your first time of even modeling a structural system, especially if you haven't taken computer graphics. But in our case, it is pretty simple, right? So I like to use this as like a thing, right? So in my case, now I want to make certain floors or, you know, profiles. Again, I know that we're kind of faking it till we make it, but if I am going to do a rendered model, I do want it to be somewhat realistic. So in my case, I'm going to start with a box. And a typical floor, guys, especially of these statures, and depending on it really all depends on your span, right? And how many columns you really want. But basic is at least 24 inches, right? Whether that be solid woods or, you know, concrete and substrates, anyway. So, I mean, just ballpark it, right? In our case, you know, my favorite tool, zoom selected, zooming in on something. But in my case, I do want to establish a grid system. So, I mean, one of the first things that I could start to do is think about the spans and maybe the inner workings of those, or again, just however you want to measure it. Obviously, this is for tutorial, but in my case, maybe I want to offset one of these. Offsets. I want that inner beam, and keep in mind it's going to double. And so in my case, maybe a total of 1 foot. So I'm going to go with 6 inches. And as you can see, we immediately see our scale. But in my case, I'm going to make kind of like a waffle grid. That way I can make some structure, kind of get away from stuff. Anyway, just to kind of show you at least one way or avenue that I find pretty simple and easy. So I'm going to take these two, I'm going to loft them. Sweet. I want to close it if I can. If not, it's okay. I'll loft it real quick and just cap it. I want to make that a solid object because the next thing I want to do is essentially take it away. So in my case, it might be easier just to array this. So to show you what I mean a little bit better, array. Anytime that I have something in a grid, obviously I want 1, 2, 3. So which is my direction? You have your X, your Y. So it's always good to build in a Cartesian plane. Keep in mind you can move this thing. So if you go to C-plane, a lot of people don't know this either. You can choose world and actually select a new point. So in my case, at the top point, sorry, that's to realign it. C-plane. You can just actually click where you want it. Forgot it got easier. Anyway, that's great. So in our case, I could just copy this over and over again, especially if you have something that's like kind of weird, right? And maybe not as regular as what I'm building today. It kind of looks like a, you know, candy. But essentially, we're kind of actually building the molds through these things. To be fair, this is so simple. You probably could just array it or, of course, just copy it. In my case, like, it's pretty quick. So again, always using those endpoints. And again, this is why near is so dangerous for me, and I just don't recommend it to anybody, because near doesn't get the exact piece, and you always want the exact piece. I mean, come on. We're perfectionists here. Anyway, I want to type in show so I can bring that piece back. And essentially this 2-foot concrete, if you will, I'm going to place it kind of slightly into the chocolate. I don't really want to go past it because it'll make a hole. Unless I want to make a hole in the middle. Okay, maybe one of our designs has a hole in the middle. I mean, why not? It's going to be great. Maybe it has 2. Yeah, it's got 2. Anyway, so as you can tell, I want to subtract essentially what's happening. And to kind of show you that a little bit better, we'll use ghosted mode. So in my case, I'll take the overall piece, and I should really kind of do this in colors. Sorry. Let's switch that color. I just find that, you know, the color is a lot easier to see. Maybe not, but I don't know. There's something softer about it, and you can start to see some shade and shadow quality, the lightness. Anyway, I think it's easier to see. But let's subtract that. So we'll take this piece, Boolean split or difference. Of course, you at least have to spell boo correctly. So Boolean difference. It's been a long day. It's always a long day. I love it. So we'll take all these pieces, or we'll just take them all in one piece. Enter. And voila. We have this leftover piece that is actually now a structured piece, if you take a look at it, right? Especially from underneath, especially if you're trying to make some drawings. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can always, you know, make columns, make beams and things like this with sweep, and we'll do some of that too, but I haven't shown a lot of students this. And what's nice about that is immediately we can use it. So let's go back to a regular shaded. And now I can start building walls off it, drawing on it again, and it's just a really fast way to model it, especially if you're not talking. So anyway, we'll use that. And actually one of the questions, you know, I'll do that again actually for this piece, and I don't necessarily have to do that always over and over again. In fact, I don't recommend it. Use what you got already, right? So in my case, I'm gonna snag this piece, copy, take that endpoint. In my case, this is the smarter endpoint, and I usually look for that word. That's when I know that it's actually snapped to something. So it says end, right? I don't want to do that all over again, so I'll take all these, but I don't want to copy all those, so I'll use a filter. Curves? Only curves? No, I don't want curves. I want surfaces, bro. Nope, it's not a surface. Sometimes that's a good way to like know what things actually are without having to search it up all the time. But yeah, as you can see, there's the best way to use filter. Fantastic tool. Anyway, I want to make another box. BOX. We'll take that endpoint to that endpoint. And you can probably hear my 3-year-old singing. It's pretty good. So we'll take that, lift it up a little bit. And again, we're trying to fake it till we make it, guys. Like, you see how I kind of just moved those, kind of just based on eyeballing it. I mean, that's based on the scale, right? But I'm just eyeballing it. Right? That comes with practice. But in my case, again, Boolean difference or split. One of my favorites is, of course, just split. I find it's just a little bit easier. Nice. And that leftover piece is something that we can start to, we can also bend this. Excuse me, I don't recommend it because it gets kind of weird, but you know, I've never tried. I kind of want to know. Will it even, oh, it does do a poly surface. We're about to find out. All right, we're going down the midpoint this time. Ooh, I mean, for the sake of 3D rendering, it's a little off, right? But I mean, for the sake of needing to come up with something in 2 weeks, that is absolutely acceptable. So it's not too bad. Let's see what it looks like in rendered. Is it stayed orange? Interesting. But it looks pretty good. Usually goes white. Oh, it's because they've got an orange material. Oh, that would make sense. Well, that is significantly harder to see. Maybe I'm just blind. Anyway, orange is good. So the next thing I want to answer is actually just reminds myself Carlos's question. So he had a question of, you know, I want to make a building pad for this, essentially is what that's called. Sometimes referred to as a foundation pad, and I kind of want to just minus it from here. Kind of the same thing, same principle going on here. Let me hide these real quick because it looks like, you know, stuff in chocolate bars. Here, let's get rid of those. We don't really need that. I kind of want to keep the grid though, and you know, for the sake of putting something together for today, keep in mind I'm not trying to really design anything. I'm kind of just going on memory and what I would imagine might be helpful to my students. So actually looking really nice with that little bit of shade and shadow. I mean, shoot. It's not too bad there. Anyway, I do want to show you guys TwinMotions today, but as you can see, Rhino's not bad either. It does require, I think, a little bit more work, a little bit of know-how, but essentially TwinMotions has made that a little bit easier. Now that it runs natively on the Mac is pretty cool. Anyway, back to Carlos's question, is essentially how to build a pad. So in our case, I'm going to start with a new layer, and I would just call it, you know, foundation pad, building pad. You always want to label something. I mean, that's just a given. I know I say it in literally every video, but gosh, I wish I really did. So I do want to turn my filter off, and I like to just switch layers and turn some off. So building pad. First things first, you kind of want to know what that building pad shape is, right? So for instance, maybe for this piece per se, and I'm going to draw this kind of to the outside. I think it's just easier to see than drawing the topography. Now keep in mind you can like lock the topography, but it'll still lock on to certain things. So like if I draw a polyline, I don't know who needs to hear this, but sometimes it'll still stick to something. Like you see that it sticks to an end, and that's no good. That's not good, right? Because as you know, it's not always flat. And for this, we definitely want to draw flat. So the best way to do that is sometimes just drawing on, I don't know, maybe a flat version that your professor gave you. Anyway, so in my case, I'll make sure that it's locked. Sorry. And it is, right? That way I can just draw on it freely. Can't tell you how much I've wasted in time. Anyway, so in my case, some sort of building pad to answer the question. Now, I would say the best way to hold back earth, right, essentially with a retaining wall, is to kind of follow those lines. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd probably want to get some diagonals involved, but essentially there'd be a vertical, a diagonal that kind of follows to the perpendicular, possibly, I don't know, another vertical. So I'm just holding shift here, right, so I can maintain a line. And maybe, of course, I want to cut into there, and again, strive to be to the perpendicular of the piece. In my case, I just want to essentially make a huge box. So hopefully use my, do I have my smart tools on? Smart track? Heck yeah. That's where, of course, I do want it. Because hopefully it will line up to here. Nice. That way, easy close and a nice cut box. So from here, that doesn't look very straight. I guess it's okay. Anyway. Sorry, losing my voice on this one. But in my case, we'll go back to shaded. And let's go take a look at that a little bit down here. Now, obviously I use that to draw. So in my case, again, just taking this back to where I want to use it. In my case, I'd probably want to keep the rotation of those, my bad. I did put the measurement on there somewhere, but we'll fake it till we make it for today. You know, not too shabby there. But in my case, I want to make it a solid object. So I kind of want to get it out of there. Let's make this a little bit easier to see. Whoa. Again, always with my zoom selected. Lifesaver, right? It's going to focus on that object. Anyway, in our case, I want to make it an object, so extrude. I kind of want to make it a big object. In this case, Carlos was basically, you know, how do I make this building pad? How do I, you know, extract it from the earth, maybe even add back to the earth? Well, adding back is a little bit harder, but in a way, we can actually use the same shape twice. So in my case, I'm just going to kind of set it into the earth at a certain distance. Well, what distance? Well, let's take a look at another view and at least get a solid prediction. Maybe for the sake of this observation tower, again, stick with me. I mean, I know it's a tutorial, but I'd essentially want to go into the earth. Let's maybe go to the actual stair. Yeah. Boom. There we go. Faking it until we make it. Oh, it's not even touching. Anyway, there we go. So in our case, I'm building a retaining wall, as you can see, for our little observation tower. Yeah. Anyway, so in our case, again, Boolean splitting from the ground. So I'd want to take that piece, unlock it in our case, and essentially subtract it from this. Now I'd probably make a copy just in case I mess up, and that's just good habit. And these things mess up all the time, and there goes an entire 5-week project. Essentially, oh sorry, 6 weeks. Yeah, 6 weeks. So in our case, you can get all the layers just like that. Boolean split. Ooh, I want to make another copy. Boolean split, or again, difference in two objects really do a lot of the same things. Cutting surfaces, boom, enter, voila. We get this leftover piece, and actually Rhino now knows, because it didn't always do this, but it now knows what pieces it actually cuts through, and that's just fantastic. Never get rid of the piece, always kind of move it out of the way, see what was kind of left over, and it's probably these little individual pieces. It looks like mine's together, so see, this is what I mean, you can always mess up. Is it grouped? Ungrouped? Yes, it was grouped. There you have it. So in my case, I'm literally going to come in and delete the earth. Sounds awful. Sound like a mad scientist or something. But again, you'd kind of want to get to obviously a layer. So you'll see where it's basically essentially stopped cutting. Don't want to remove too many layers though. Otherwise I'll disrupt the surface and it'll look all funny, as you can see right here. That looks like a solid surface. If you want to double check rendered, always just check it out, see what it looks like. But yeah, now we got a cutaway from the earth, and oh my gosh, now we need some columns. Anyway, hope that answers the question. The next thing that I'd want to do, Carlos, for his particular question of how do you build a building pad, is I'd probably want to just keep using this, right? So in my case, offset, typical foundation wall, or sorry, retaining wall is about anywhere from 12 to 18 inches. I'll go on the big side, 18 inches. It's a lot of earth, maybe. I don't know, it really depends on the PSI of the concrete. But in our case, I usually just kind of do this in midair. I know a lot of people, maybe struggle with that at first, so sorry if it's a little confusing. But I just get rid of whatever I don't need, right, in my case. Boop. And essentially continue that wall. So I'm going to draw a line. I want to draw it to its perpendicular. Again, if you're using your tools right, you kind of do this in essentially every view. You kind of see that? Obviously I want to tie this loose end as well. So line. Again, sorry if I don't call out every single thing I'm doing. I do have a weird way of doing things, but again, I learned in a weird way. So I'll take that entire piece, again, that piece that I exploded. I don't need that piece though, so again, I can always hold Command or Control and deselect something and join those. Then again, if I just hit join, it knows not to join those. So again, kind of move this piece out of the way. Sorry about that. So you can kind of see what I'm doing there. Again, extrude, because it's a wall, right? However much you need. Oh, I'm gonna fake it till I make it. Oh yeah, I did move it. So I might want to do that first. Let's go ahead and move this. Yeah, get it ballpark. Hey look, a spot. Now I'd probably want to make sure that lines up in some way. I know I kind of just ballparked it, being cool, but that is not aligned. So I would make sure that it is before I do this extrusion. Boop. Sweet. Extrude. Put it into the ground. Not that far. There we go. But as you can see, that is a large retaining wall, but it's making some sense, right? At least so far. Let's cut that down a little bit because it's obnoxious. Best way to cut it down through obnoxity. And see, this is why I don't always like these views. You might have to get another view. Let's go with the front. Better. That is the view I wanted. But is that the right model? There we go. So let's chop off that wall. And the best way to do it is, of course, just drawing a line. Now in my case, I probably want to hold shift, but we'll see. If I don't hit any points, and you can always turn this off, by the way. I mean, you just turn off O-snap, and it's going to draw flat no matter what. But as you can see, it's inaccurate as well. So, I don't know. I don't want all that retaining wall. Oops, I want more than one line. Thank you. Sorry, trying to do this as fast as possible. This stuff just really does take time, as you can see, especially when you're just making it up on the fly. Anyway, let's say I had a unique angle, sweet, and I'm just gonna wire cut that off. So again, holding my piece, as you can see, I drew it in the wrong direction. Oh no, that's okay. Fake it till I make it. And make it bigger. Voila. Yeah, let's still do the same trick. In my case, there we go. So I'll take this piece, wire cut, cut that piece. It's like, which way, sir? Oh, that's right, I have a funky direction. How about normal to the curve? Thank you. And this direction, get rid of it. So again, just kind of wire cutting that off. Again, there's some one-on-one modeling skills. Doesn't look not too shabby. Of course, I may also want a floor to that. Obviously, as you can see, it is still earth and just a retaining wall. So I may want, I don't know, a solid surface of some kind. I'm just going to throw a box in there. Oh, I forgot my O-snap. man, you get used to those things. Obviously I want some sort of center, but I don't want the center of a certain point. In my case, kind of ballparking it there. There's nothing to grab onto except my own point. But as you can see, I've rotated my model, and the dangers of rotating your model. You might, again, sorry about that, you might want to have a copy of each. It will make it easier to draw, or again, you wouldn't do this necessarily on the fly like I'm doing. You would draw a lot of that actually in your views first, right? I mean, draw this stuff, such as the lines that we've been taking over, of course, to actually start making these things. Again, don't do what I do. This is just a tutorial, and I'm just trying to show the tips and tricks, essentially the best practices I think you can use to model these things. Anyway, so I hopefully think that answers, of course, Carlos's question. In my case, I really do want a floor in there, and I just realized I got one right here. Whoop. Fake it till you make it. Anyway, I didn't mean to move that way. There we go. Nice. Again, probably not the floor we asked for, but pretty interesting. Again, I can actually chop this off as well. So, I don't know. Let's go with something cool today. Let's chop that off. Boop. Again, wire cut, possibly my best friend. Would not have got through grad school without it. But as you can see, you can eliminate floors and get rid of leftover pieces. But that's looking pretty sweet for what at least we want to do today, and that's actually also bring this into TwinMotion. So I didn't go over necessarily every modeling thing. I mean, how could I? But again, if you guys have more questions, I'll definitely get into it and of course continue this tutorial. But as you can see, what's nice about this is it immediately makes a plan too. So keep in mind, if you're modeling, it is kind of worth the learning curve. And I know that sounds really hard to say, but if you're doing the work, if you're putting in the time, and you're practicing like an instrument, keep in mind, I play like 11, guys. Like clarinet is like, dude, the amount of hours I put on the clarinet is the amount of some people in Call of Duty. So you get good at things, right? No matter what you do. So keep, of course, doing it. And seriously, eventually you'll be better than the rest. It's just how it works, because the rest die, right? Anyway, not to be absolutely morbid. Sorry, I'm getting nitpicky. I want to chop that off. What I want to do next, I was trying to think of anything else that I could model. I was kind of thinking going back to some of these pieces. Again, just hit me up if you have certain questions, because I mean, I think that solves a lot right there. You start putting some columns, bam, we got some architecture. But I kind of want to end our model for today. I mean, why not? But again, how long is this video? I don't want it to be too long. It's hard to watch a really long video and listen to me for even longer than studio. But I kind of want to get something in there. You know, I mean, hopefully you get the idea of what I'm trying to say here. And again, if you have modeling questions, just let me know. Preferably during class. But as you can see, obviously, we can do something with this, as a lot of students are probably trying to do right for this project. But I'll leave that here for today, and let's just get into TwinMotions, just to kind of go over it. TwinMotions is kind of new to me, but for those of us who are tech savvy and plan to do this in the computer, I just wanted to show some of the results. Of course, it's entirely through Epic Games. I'm not sure why my screen is like this right now, but we'll... couple of caveats. I would definitely, if your screen messes up like this, you might want to run the previous version. So I'm going to go ahead and quit all my extra stuff moving. Epic's Games Launcher. And that was probably running from last night, so let's try Epic Games again. Again, you just want to install TwinMotions. You'll essentially just type in TwinMotions. Completely free. You don't have to use your edu account. And it works for both Windows, Mac, and essentially any computer. It's a game engine, right, essentially, but we're going to load, of course, our model. And I want to show you some of the great ways that it's actually paired with Rhino. That's just really cool, right? I know it's super advanced, and most of us probably won't even make it to this part of the video and don't need to. So again, just to kind of hopefully explain that, keep in mind, you can take a screenshot of this and draw it all day long, right? We can really start to set up the views. And of course, if you need help setting up cameras, refer to exercise 3 in part 1, part 2, and part 3 of exercise 3 of my computer graphics, because I definitely go over some camera work. Won't necessarily do that today because it's recorded a million times. But at least TwinMotions is pretty interesting, I think, especially on talking about the money shot today, right? And of course how to set that up, and that it's essentially like Lumion except free. Even though arguably I think Lumion runs very much more intuitively, but it is what it is. So in our case, I want to go to TwinMotion and of course launch it. Now this is only because I've installed it first, but you know, again, if you have a computer that is an Apple and at least an M1 chip, like especially M Pro and above, like honestly, you could probably run 2023 pretty easily. You know, you're definitely going to hear my fans for this one, because you do want to run it cool, right? You never want to run a computer hot. I mean, that's the best way to decrease your chips and just get less power out of them. You get way more power by, of course, spending a little bit of power in those fans. So in our case, I'm going to launch 2026 and turn on my fans. And hopefully this doesn't crash while screen recording, so stay tuned for that. I'm not going to max it out. It doesn't really need that. I did that for the rendering process, but it is loud. But you know, good temperatures are always like 120 to 140. You know, that's okay. But some of the stuff that I was working on is, of course, like, you know, obviously I want to set this up, but essentially we can make a new scene. In our case, by default, I would get rid of a few things, right? So for, you know, the starting landscape, we don't really need that. And this essentially works like our layers. So again, I'm not an absolute pro at TwinMotions, and I hope to, of course, learn a lot more. I'll also share one of the guides and the guide that I found on YouTube that was extremely helpful. So in our case, the first thing that we want to do is actually import this model. So again, one of the first things that I can do is make sure that when I do install TwinMotions, there's basically this little part that says installing a plugin for Rhino. And you'll see that it's called DataSmith, right? So if you look up even just DataSmith for TwinMotion Rhino, that download's essentially going to come up. It's free. But it installs this little tool called Synchronize, and that's pretty much how easy it is. So in our case, I'd go to import, the plus sign, and essentially it's going to load up already what I'm working on. So that's kind of nice. I really only want a certain piece though. So don't get me wrong, it's really cool that I can just load the entire thing in there, but I only need one piece, and that would be this one. So I'm going to grab everything that I can, at least from there. And I don't really need the curves, I just need the surfaces. So in my case, just poly surfaces and surfaces, please. Nice. So we just really need that. Probably want to move that a little bit more. There we go. Way easier to just take all of that. Man, I always do that. It's like the biggest joke. Anyway, hide. And of course, I like to always put it in the origin, just because that's how programs really read from others. But I would maintain the north. That's where this actually does come in, because, well, you do kind of want to rotate the model, because for this next program, you can't really change, at least from what I saw, and really just HDR environments, the orientation. So again, you always want to make that true. In our case, this is pretty much good to go. So I'll take it back to parallel, kind of hone back in, just because I'm a perfectionist. Nice. From here, I can basically slide over. It's going to load this basically in. So upload. Not sure what that sign means. That's never good. Oh, I forgot to synchronize. So again, what I want to do, DataSmith, synchronize. It's actually going to load over there first. In my case, try this again. Direct link. Rhinoceros site test, that's the name of my file. Full precision normals. Typically I usually leave these settings. In my case it loaded right in. And we essentially have all those parts. Pretty cool. So I'm using actually my up and down arrows, or if you're familiar with the game, it's essentially roadblocks, guys, if you've ever played. I'm holding shift to go faster, like I kid you not. But get familiar with it because it can be daunting at first. I'm still holding my right click and essentially panning just like Rhino. And actually I learned that this program has some really nice mouse settings. So if you, it even like says Revit or Rhino or Photoshop, it actually already has those presets set in. But anyway, I kind of want to just set up something and I totally forgot my columns. That's okay. I can bring them back extremely easily, especially if I already have that. And well, I had them yesterday. Where'd they go? I guess we don't need columns for a tutorial, but it's weird. Anyway, excuse me. In our case, getting familiar with this, obviously, I think you can just tell, right? But some of the stuff that I've learned is essentially just clicking on materials. Say I wanted this to be a concrete, and don't get me wrong, I'm a stickler for making concrete look good, but what's nice is this does it all in one program. This is essentially what I would normally do actually in Photoshop. Now keep in mind, it doesn't save us much time, but it does save us some sanity, and overall there's definitely a much more feeling of finished. Again, take it what you will. I'd still throw it into Photoshop and give it a sketchy look, or be able to draw on it, but that's something I could really draw on pretty easily and set the time to a better degree, right? It's a little bit more realistic, so obviously the afternoon versus the morning. Now it looks like in my case, like the model's actually the other way around. No, obviously the shadow should be going the other way. Well, I stand corrected. Maybe we gotta rotate this model. Anyway, I'm sure it's easy as, of course, synchronizing. But again, I just want to point out how cool this object is. Anyway, putting materials to it. Let's say I wanted this to be glass. Let's get some glass. We'll get some concrete involved too. Keep in mind, you do have to download these before you use them. And that's kind of nice, actually, because it doesn't take up so much space on your hard drive. Lumion normally takes up 64 gigabytes. But again, pretty nice what we can do there. Instant glass. In our case, very reflective. Like super nice. I mean, just fantastic graphics. I don't think I even have them set up all the way. 59 per second is pretty good, but okay. I mean, let's go ultra today. I mean, why not? Okay, that's why. I'm getting 40 still, but again, this is a really nice program. It runs more like a game, but for our architecture. Sorry, let me get back to that material. Obviously, we have some glass. We want to click back on library, materials. Also the trees, the entourage. I mean, my goodness, I want to make an entire scene here, including 3D grass. Anyway, for free. This is normally $5,000 a year with Lumion. So again, I am just, giddy to use it. In my case, some concrete. Oh, some of my favorite, board form or precast. In my case, and again, once you download this, you can drag it quite literally onto the object itself. Keep in mind, you'll notice it immediately goes to all one piece. So to avoid that, there are a couple of options up here. You'll notice the eyedropper tool is essentially how you can basically select something. But instead of a bucket tool or, sorry, you have to hold these down. You can apply to replacing material, which is what I did, and you saw it actually put a bunch there, or apply to an object. In my case, I definitely just want to apply to an object per single, especially since, as you can see, I've got a lot of objects. So in my case, I want to go back to that concrete and just drag it right back on. And now it only affects this piece. As you can see, terrible choice. What the heck was I thinking? That could be the preview. I don't know, that doesn't quite look like what I was looking at. So it could be a couple things. Could be the scale. So we'll take the scale. Ooh, maybe. And would you look at that? It's always a scale. Clearly, I need to get a little bit smaller. I wonder if I could just type that in. Ooh, nice. Didn't know that. Even better. 0.03. How about that? Oh, okay. Now we're getting somewhere. However, I can also rotate it, apparently. And I can change some more details. So again, stretching it in the X and the Y, very nice. And again, that's super important, especially when you're a professional. But again, for the sake of tutorial, again, oh my gosh, I hope this is recording. But that's starting to look pretty realistic. And again, I can change the color, right? So again, there is just a plethora of different things that are normally found in more, expensive programs. Again, I can add some, oh, that's another thing. This thing is completely animated. You can have people just walking through this thing. Doesn't make a lot of sense for print, but you know what I mean. And of course a sign. Could have swore we could change the colors, but maybe that's because it's actually predetermined. No? Okay, we can change the texture. That's pretty, okay. Ooh, nice. So we can actually even Photoshop our own textures. Again, for another video. Clear coat. I just realized actually some of these materials have different options to them. So again, just kind of a game changer. And just a great way to learn this program and see what's available. As you can see, the way that this program's organized is phenomenal. I love the fact that it's just very simple. And again, I can break it down. If I don't want these and want to see this better, oh my god, just absolutely fantastic. Anyway, not a word. But in our case, again, using my arrows, and as you can see, it is a little bit slower. Running at ultra. Also, you can use the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 to actually control the speed. So I accidentally hit 6. Let's see 5. 5 is a good speed. Okay, so again, it was maybe just the speed. Let's get some of these other objects. I mean, shoot, we're here. Why not? I don't want to get too weird. Stone. No, that doesn't even make sense. Again, when in doubt, use some concrete. That's looking pretty fine. A little shiny. Maybe we can take back the reflectivity. Gotta download it first, then move it. As you can see, I gotta do this to separate pieces. So maybe in that case, I do set this back to apply to selection. I wonder if it only applies to pieces that I've selected. Oh, okay. Well, that's cool too. But let's replace that material. Again, it's going to accidentally get some of my others. And again, it's going to keep this one, not necessarily just the one object at a time. So I hit escape button. Yes, you can use escape button still in this program. Fantastic. And just apply to each object. I mean, that's not a big deal. I think you can also select multiple objects. Yeah, so you can keep kind of going with the same piece. Makes that a little easier, as you can see. I can also use Q and E, or the, again, up arrows and down arrows. Oops. You can also do Command Z still. So again, already better than Lumion. You can't do Command Z in Lumion. That's hilarious. $5,000 a year and you can't hit Command Z. Can you believe that? Somebody's getting paid to not give you Command Z. That's what I go that far. But yeah, obviously you can see serious potential with this program. And I mean, shoot, let's make the whole dang thing concrete. Why not? Boom. Boom. But again, just absolutely easy. And arguably so much easier than, no offense, but taking each material, going to properties, going to materials, setting the materials, getting cheesy materials. Don't get me wrong, it has a purpose. But if you're trying to do some high quality renders, you know what I mean? Anyway, just an absolute difference, and already looking very professional. Now the next things that I want to get into is some of the scenes, and obviously putting down some objects. Oops, forgot to clip that wall. Kind of looks pretty good. When in doubt, put a tree by it, right? So in our case, this is the one thing that I have found annoying is vegetation. Don't get me wrong, I love it, and the only thing that's annoying is that it has literally every tree known to man, but I am pretty used to Lumion, which this is all downloaded. Keep in mind, I guess you could sit here and just download them all, but in my case, you can hit favorites. So say you find some favorites, you can go to the top and of course get some favorites, but it doesn't seem to have my favorites from other files. You know what I mean? Like if I start a new file, it doesn't maintain the favorites, which is annoying, which tells me it's actually downloading to this file, which is kind of nice. So it's all in one file. It's not actually in the program. Which, let's face it, is just really cool, because potentially what that means is It's a cloud point system, so they can just update this piece, you re-download it, fixed, right? Just as you can see, but clearly it takes some time to download. It does come into scale, and it does come in this mode where as soon as you put it down, it tries to find the nearest object, right? So it is going to place it on a wall. It doesn't know that this is, in fact, topography, but my gosh, what a realistic tree, and you don't understand how much this actually takes up on computers. Now, again, possibly the worst tree selection, but again, I hope you get the point, guys. Obviously, a serious game changer, especially for some of us. And I'm going to do my best to contact Juan and see if he can get TwinMotions on these computers. I think it's very doable, especially in the 2-week time frame, and even for this week, if you want to use it and start to build a money shot. This is a way longer video than I thought, but again, just to kind of show you the end result. And again, I'll share that video. It's running a little long, so I am going to quit it from here, but again, I hope you do in fact see the potential. Again, to take a shot, you can go into media. Sorry, I feel like I just got to keep going. When in doubt, actually go back to this library. Maybe that's my advice. Go back to this library and just drag it onto your piece. It's super intuitive. As you can see, I can't get back to my library. Oh, it's because I'm not in, I guess, a library mode. No? Back to modeling? Please let me go back. Maybe, oh, there we go. I guess it actually shows all favorites. Interesting. But as you can see, cars, glass, plastic, go back to objects, lights, HDR environments, which is actually what I wanted to show you because it's, gosh, it like has our site or something. Anyway, you can take anything, any site. Obviously, you'd want to pick something that is a little bit more like our site. Our site is not that green. Maybe in our heads it's that green, but it's not that green. Clearly, again, you have to download these. Saves our computer some space, but again, not our time. Gotta pay for that time somewhere. But again, you drag it in, and essentially you get this scene that is controlled by the media center. Keep in mind it's also an object in our, what are they calling this? The scene. And some environments take longer than others, as you can see. But essentially, just like Rhino, and many, of course, other programs, we get that kind of false horizon line, and of course, kind of start to develop that background, especially for the worm's eye view. And let's just kind of show you that media real quick. Again, some of my tips and tricks, sorry, just going super fast. Let's get some properties involved. Also, looks like slowing down significantly, so I'm going to turn off the ultra, go back to high. A little bit better movement. There we go. Do I dare go to 6? Yeah, 6 is a little fast. I'm going to go 5. Anyway, so you can actually set up the views here, and you can actually control the camera. So let's turn that off. And of course, we have to actually go to the scene. I'm pretty sure you can actually double click on the scene, but I also think this goes in order. So what's really great is it is all here. However, what's also not great is it is all there. Literally every single item. But I found myself actually having it a lot easier and checking all my pieces. There's my columns. They are right there. Somewhere. Anyway, that's exactly what I mean. So it does have everything in this object. In my case, even down to my layers still. So if I need to turn off certain stairs, topography, again, maybe my topography is getting too heavy, so I turn things on and off. Again, it happens all the time. Foundation post. Oh, yep, there's that piece. And again, all those trees that I put down there. My camera though, where's my camera? Why is all my breps? Oh yeah, duh, I gotta take a picture. Anyway, we got our camera. Sorry, duh. So I have an image, but that's just kind of like saving a view, just like we have in Rhino. So I save a view, and again, just want to share this. If you've ever taken a photography class, now's the time, now's the chance, guys. Because of course now you can use your actual focal lengths. So like a 24mm film camera, oh my gosh, look at that. And that is how you get a money shot. Now if you want to go for the drama, Hear me out. You gotta get the wide angle lens. Okay, typically like a 12 millimeter, maybe even 13, 14, just for good measure. Oh yeah, look at that. You can get the dramatic angle. But again, just what a game changer. Sorry. I'm an absolute thrill. I'll share the video with you, but again, just kind of wanted to show the multitude. And you could spend like I was seriously like 6 hours last night. I was just messing around, of course, with this program. Anyway, I'll leave it there for today, and of course, upload.